In today's show, we're going to talk about another Trailblazers road loss. It's what they do. Once they leave Portland, they lose their superpowers, and they did it again on Wednesday night, losing to the Sacramento Kings. Let's break it all down, what it means, and talk about a wonderful Jusuf Nurkic night that got spoiled. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts, and now it's also on YouTube. If you had not subscribed to the show on YouTube, do me a favor, go ahead and do that right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, smash the button. If you are listening in your podcast feed, go to YouTube, pull out your phone, go to YouTube, search Locked On Blazers and subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel there. We'll set some arbitrary goal in the future, but now I'm just asking you politely, please go subscribe. Help me grow the show. I would truly appreciate it. In today's show, we're going to talk about the Blazers' 125-121 loss to the Sacramento Kings. Not good, y'all. Blazers are now 1-8 on the road. This was not the one to lose. A road trip that goes to Golden State and Salt Lake City after this. Second night of back-to-back, all those things. But this was not the game to lose. The Kings are not a very good basketball team. They've been playing like a truly bad one. They were 2-7 at home coming into this game, and the Blazers blew it. But we got a lot to talk about. Nurk had an awesome game. The Blazers kind of spoiled a wonderful Nurk night. We'll talk about that too. But first, let's do what we do at this time. It's the fastest recap in the West. Blazers lose 125-121 in Sacramento, fall to 1-8 on the road. They were up 36-32 after one, and they were up 36-32 because Jusuf Nurkic had himself a game full of stats in the first 10 minutes. 14 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, and he checked out after about 10 and a half minutes. And Nurk was balling early. We'll talk about him a lot in today's show. Blazers held on and were up 2 at the half, 71-69. As you can see, not a lot of defense in this one, but a nice night from both offenses. With a lot of text, a lot of whistles, a lot of beef in this one. This was a heavy beef game. It was a game where nobody played defense, so instead of playing defense, they just got mad at each other. But with 49 seconds left in the first half, in the late second quarter, Robert Covington was ejected for tossing his face mask, or the face mask to protect a broken nose, and just for style now, he broke his nose in last January, closing in on a year of the mask. Tossed his mask at the referee and was summarily ejected for a hostile act. We'll talk about more on that one in a second. But so the Blazers played the second half without Robert Covington, and they went through a slog of a third quarter, up 2 at the half to find themselves down 1 heading into the fourth quarter after shooting 6 of 24 in the third quarter. It was just an absolute slog on offense, and the defense was, the Kings weren't much better, but they ended up taking the lead. That was a chance for the Blazers to pull away, and so they found themselves basically even after 3. And it was basically even in the final 6 minutes when De'Aaron Fox got a technical foul, jawed at the ref, decided to keep jawing. His teammates kind of half pushed him away, and he kept yelling, and the Kings' best player, point guard De'Aaron Fox, ejected with 6 minutes and 6 seconds left in the game, and the Kings clinging to at the time a 3-point lead. They were up 106-103 at the time of the first tech, and then he got ejected after Damian Lillard hit the first free throw. It was a 2-point game, but the Blazers couldn't get all the way back. Damian Lillard went 0 for 7 from 3 in the second half, and they never got closer than a Jusuf Nurkic and 1 with 3 minutes and 26 seconds left. 3 minutes, 26 seconds left. Jusuf Nurkic and 1 over Marvin Bagley. It's 112-111 for sort of as gross as the second half was for the Blazers. There they are right in it, in this game with a chance to win it. And they got one stop in the final 3 minutes. One. They stopped the Kings from scoring one time. Kings scored on 4 of their final 5 possessions before the foul game happened, and the Blazers went into scramble mode, but they got one stop in the final 3 minutes with a chance to win the game, and that's how you lose 125-121. Like I said, spoiled just a monster Nurk game. 28-17, 5 dimes. He was 12 of 17 from the floor and hit 4 of 5 free throws. Damian Lillard didn't shoot particularly well, 7 of 18 and 3 of 12 from 3, but did damage at the free throw line, 15 of 16, had 32 points and 10 assists. Bad night for CJ McCollum, 13 points, 6 of 20 shooting. Norman Powell stays ready so he doesn't have to get ready, 22 points, hit 5 3-pointers. Nazir Little, 16 points off the bench. Larry Nance started in Robert Covington's stead as the power forward in the second half, and he's just a 5. He's a 5, not a 4, and he was not particularly good. 5 points and 4 boards for Larry. He wasn't bad. It's just like it's not a great fit for him there. And it screwed up all the rotations. De'Aaron Fox led the Kings before getting ejected with 21 points, and Buddy Hield had 22. He actually led the Kings with 22 points. De'Aaron Fox would have, but he got ejected after 27 minutes. This was a defense optional game, and both teams opted out. And the Blazers just, they let you down. They let you down, Blazers fans. They really did. This was a game where you needed to win because you just need to get one of these because the next 2 road games are tough. We'll talk about that more to close the show. But you also just you need to prove that you're capable of this is what good teams do, is they beat bad teams. Regardless of what happens Friday and Monday, regardless of the schedule, you want it because you know you might lose those next 2 games, right? But regardless of that, it's what good teams do. They beat a team that's 2-7, has already fired their coach, and is about to have the longest playoff drought in the history of North American professional sports. The Kings are bad. The Kings are a bad basketball team. Shout out to Matt George, host of Locked On Kings. He'll probably tell you the same. Matt, if you're listening, I apologize. The Kings are fine, man. They're fine. I like their jerseys tonight. But they're all right. Matt's probably gone now. So yeah, the Kings are bad. The Kings are bad. Look, this was not a game you lose. If you fancy yourself a good team, fancy yourself a competitive team, and the Blazers are in striking distance of 4th place in the West, right? That could end up with a home court advantage in the playoffs. This is a game you win. Even the second night of a back-to-back, even with all the caveats and all the excuses baked in, this is a game you win. Even losing Rocco. And Anthony Simons did not play in this game. He was ruled out prior to tip-off with an upper respiratory infection. It's a non-COVID illness. Chauncey Billups told reporters prior to the game that Ant has been sick for a couple days, and it just kind of caught up with him tonight, and he was unable to go. So we got more Dennis Smith in this game. We got 20 minutes of Dennis Smith Jr. I have more on this game, but the real takeaway here is that this is what bad teams do. Bad teams find a way to lose these games. The Blazers are 1-8 on the road. Their one win is over the Houston Rockets. There's 3 teams with fewer than 2 wins on the road, and it's the truly bad teams. It's Houston, OKC, and the New Orleans Pelicans. OKC got thrown in there for nothing. Houston and the Pelicans, and Portland, it's a mess. They're a mess right now. They're just bad, and the defense just didn't bring it. They couldn't get a stop in the final 3 minutes, but they also couldn't get a stop early. They gave up, almost 70 points in the first half. And if they're going to rip off 70, they need to hold, the Kings are fine on offense, but it's, you score 92 points in the first 3 quarters. You need to, you got to put yourself in a position to not be in just trading buckets, and that's what they were. And when you end up trading buckets, and I think that's what you saw at the end of the game, then the offense feels a little bit like a slog. I think at the end of the game, the Blazers got stagnant on offense, and it was too much Dame dribbling around and too much Dame launching and just trying to run a pick and roll and get the switch or just get Davion Mitchell off Dame for a moment so he could get loose and do something. And Dame had airball to 3 late, had a couple bad decisions, a turnover on the baseline that led to a run out. But the offense wasn't the issue. The problem is when you do not ever get a stop, when you give up a point, when you give up a bucket every single time down the floor at crunch time, your offense has to be perfect to keep up. And when it's not perfect, it feels like it's failing you. The Blazers' strength didn't fail them. They scored 121. Dame had 32 and 10. He didn't shoot it particularly well, but his true shooting was above league average because he got to the line 16 times. This is what superstars do. They get easy buckets. He was fine on offense. They were fine on offense. The problem was defense, and it feels worse because the offense feels and looks worse because you're demanding it be perfect down the stretch. Now, like I said, I think the offense got a little stagnant. I think it was uncreative at the end of the game, kind of a thing that has plagued them for years. Is why I've said players are more important than coaches, because this felt like, a lot of what they've done in the past is when, okay, we need a bucket. Dame's going to pound the rock for 20 seconds, right? It's his comfort zone, and he didn't deliver down the stretch like he has so many times, but that wasn't really the issue, right? The issue was that they couldn't get a stop, so help them, and they couldn't get a stop without the Kings having their Kings' best player wasn't on the court. They closed with Davion Mitchell and Buddy Hield and Ty Halliburton. Like, this was just, it was, and you know, and Bagley and like this wasn't even, the Kings were playing their bench because they're trying to find their way. And what the Blazers did was let them find their way and score 125. What a bummer. This podcast was supposed to be about Jusuf Nurkic. Let's talk about Nurkic in the second segment. This was supposed to be a whole damn show celebrating Jusuf Nurkic, and here we are instead. We'll talk about Nurk though in the second segment because he deserves some praise. He was very, very good tonight. But first, BetOnline. It's Thanksgiving. We all know what that means. Football. And nothing goes better with football than turkey and betting. BetOnline has you covered all holiday season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. And BetOnline remains your number one spot for all sports action this Thanksgiving weekend. So head on over to their new updated desktop and mobile website. Sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus when you use that promo code LOCKEDON. It's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, combat sports like UFC and MMA, and even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait. Take advantage of all the amazing offers that are available to you. That's BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. All right. So we talked about the Blazers' loss in Sacramento. Bummer. Just truly took the wind out of my sails because in that first quarter when Nurk had 14, 10, and 2, I had loaded up the optimism cannon, and we were doing 30 minutes on Jusuf Nurkic. I'll just take you behind the scenes. We're going to do, here, if you're on YouTube, here's my notebook. This is 30 minutes on Jusuf Nurkic right there. But it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. Because they let me down. The Blazers let me down. They let you down. We got 30 minutes on the Bosnian Beast. We're going to do a full show celebrating Nurk because, listen, Nurk's much maligned this year, and you know it when you see it. He's been bad. Like, you see him when he's bad. But the advanced stats suggest he's been excellent on defense. He's been an anchor there. The Blazers are a bottom 5 defense in the league, and they were terrible on defense tonight. But Nurk is their best and most important defensive player on many, 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 many nights. Most nights even. Not every night because of matchups and whatever, but like he's been solid on the defensive end. It's just his offense, his role has been diminished a little bit, and sometimes his decision making is pretty wonky on offense. But none of that was all gone. We're gonna throw all that out. We're gonna throw all the Nurk negative stuff out, and we're gonna celebrate the Bosnian Beast, sometimes known as the Bosnian Bear, at least on Basketball Reference, and maybe one random broadcast where they called him that. But the dude was balling, like I said, 14, 10, and 2 in his first shift. And they did what they've been doing is they went to Nurk in the post. I love to see it. I don't love Nurk post-ups, but I love the idea of starting off the game by establishing Nurk. Like, you give him a touch in the post. There's 3 straight games. They've thrown the ball in. They get him. They're basically running the same thing. They swing the ball to the right wing, and then as the ball comes back to the left side of the court, Jusuf Nurkic sets a cross screen on someone down low. And so when you set a cross screen in the post, this is straight up North Carolina style basketball. Your man is going to be behind you. Unless they switch it, the opposing defender is going to go through. You are going to get a deep paint touch. Like unless they're really dedicated to not letting you touch it, just sort of like the flow of the offense, a cross screen in the post. Is going to lead to a post touch, and they've done it three straight games. First game Nurk shot it. Last game Nurk passed it. Tonight he passed out of the post. I love the idea of Nurk as a passer. I'm hugely in favor of it. I'm hugely in favor of getting Nurk those rhythm touches because late in the game it doesn't always come to him. They're not going to dump it down in the post. He's just not reliable enough down there. It's straight up not a good plan. You just want to give the ball to Damian CJ and kind of let him cook. Didn't work out tonight, but it's you'd rather move the ball around and generate a good shot, I guess, more than ISO in the post or ISO out top, I think is maybe a better way to explain what good offense looks like in the NBA. But they give Nurk touches early. They they went back to him a second straight time. Not the like super obvious, hey, we're going to post Nurk up set to open the game, but they went back to him and he delivered. He made, he got himself into the paint without bowling people over. When he did kind of get stood up a little bit by Alex Len, he went to his right hand and finished off the glass from both blocks. He finished on as a roller in pick and rolls. He stopped short twice on pick and rolls and made the right decision, the right pass. Once ended up being a turnover because CJ McCollum was out of bounds, but it was like Nurk didn't he maintained like good spacing and good decision making. And then, he wasn't as good in like down the stretch. They just didn't go to him and they kind of got away from him a little bit in the third quarter too. But like, dude finished with 28 and 17. He had the huge bucket with 3.5 minutes left to make this game a 1-point game where he caught it and went up strong and drew a charge. I thought he was going to bowl over Bagley, but he kind of pulled up his momentum and Bagley was still sliding underneath and they called a block, or they actually called that Bagley was in the charge circle. There's some debate whether he was whether Nurk caught the ball below the box that would have negated the charge circle or not. I agree with Lamar Hurd's call, by the way. Lamar, if you're listening, I thought you nailed that one. This was just a great Nurk game. Actually, let me take that back. Lamar, if you're listening, I wish your family had come on the road with you, because if you're listening to my podcast on Thanksgiving, you're just not having as good a time as you could be, man. But in any case, like this was supposed to be the Nurk night. We were going to go back to his 25-5 game that he had against Sacramento. Maybe it's something in the water there in Northern California. We were going to celebrate all of the times where Nurk is underappreciated, when he gets 6 shots in a game, but he still is really impactful. Tonight, he took 17 shots. He was 12 of 17 from the floor. I didn't like either of his 3-point attempts, but I'm really never going to like a Nurk 3-point attempt, even if they go in. He made his free throws. 5 dimes and just 2 turnovers. I thought his decision making and his energy was really good, and he was rewarded by playing a ton of minutes. He played 32 tonight. Like, this obviously 28-17 is not what Nurk's going to do every night, but this is kind of what Nurk envisions himself as, is a 32-minute, the second option on offense. And tonight he proved that he can be capable of that. Now, the front lines of Alex Len and Damian Jones and Tristan Thompson and Marvin Bagley is just like, that's one of the worst front courts in the league. Of course he ate them alive. It's not going to happen every night. If he averaged 28 and 17, he'd be Wilt friggin' Chamberlain. Like, that's not what he is. He's Jusuf Nurkic, and tonight he was fantastic. And tonight I wanted to celebrate him. I wanted to say, listen, Nurk deserves the love. Nurk has struggled, but he deserves the love. And Nurk's been good, and sometimes he still doesn't get the love even on nights that he's good. Like, this was a Nurk appreciation night. And I want to say I appreciate Nurk. I thought he was fantastic. I'm not going to tweet his stats, so he retweets me. But if you do, he probably will retweet his stats. That's his style. But like, the Blazers, his teammates, the defense down the stretch didn't allow us to celebrate Nurk. Instead, we got 8 minutes and cool, good, really nice Nurk game, a really nice Nurk game. It doesn't really matter. Like, I kind of made fun of like how bad the Kings front line is. That's what you're supposed to do. That's the job. When you have a mismatch, go get him. And Nurk went and got him. That's why we're celebrating him. If Alex Len can't guard you, let him know. Another point, and this was also a Lamar Hurd thing. It's a Lamar Hurd heavy segment, but like, he was talking about how he wants them to throw the ball into Nurk, just to like keep Nurk involved. And I think maybe Lamar is a little more generous in his belief in Nurk's ability to score out of the post, but there is something to just getting him touches. It's why I like doing it early. It's getting him touches so he stays super engaged on what the plan is. I don't think Nurk is like dogging it sometimes. I just think sometimes he doesn't get a lot of touches, so his decision making is super rushed, because it's like, I'm going to get 7 shots tonight. Okay, I got the ball in the short roll. I got to do something, or I got to make the right read out of this. I got to make the perfect pass. I got to do this. I got to score. Like, if you give him more touches and give him more, there's something about sort of calming Nurk down just by involving him more. It's not going to work every night. Like, he's not like a super efficient. Post-ups are not very efficient, period. Like, regardless of who you are, unless you're like Joel Embiid, that's and Nikola Jokic. Like, there's like 2 dudes in the league who can post up consistently. it's just the way defenses work and the way the league works. It's tough to like dump it into the post and get good looks. But when Nurk has a mismatch, and maybe 2-3 times a half, make sure he gets a post up, gets a touch to stay engaged. I like sort of the notion of it, and I think like I said, 28 and 17 isn't going to happen every night, but giving Nurk a bigger slice of the pie on offense adds variety and adds value. And the Blazers are good enough on offense that it doesn't really take away necessarily from what they want to do. Like, it wasn't, this was a high possession game. So I think like looking at field goal attempts in this game isn't like a good indicator, but it's not like even just like sort of like percentage of the offense, right? Like it's not like Damian CJ had to take a step back to do this. It's not like really Norm had to take much of a step back for Nurk to get these touches. This was just a night where maybe Ant wasn't in there to soak up some of the offense, and it went to Nurk, right? Like that's kind of the field goal attempt distribution. But I think he's capable of a bigger role on offense. And while a lot of nights I will probably sit in the same chair and say, hey, maybe a little bit less Nurk. And I'll mean it. Like I'll keep it real with y'all. But like keeping Nurk engaged so you can get the best out of him is kind of part of the assignment job description with this particular Blazer team and with where sort of Jusuf Nurkic is at. And tonight he rewarded the Blazers and rewarded you if you watched that game with just a monster game. I wish we could have celebrated Nurk in a win, because it was a night to celebrate how special Nurk was. In the third segment, let's talk about what's next for the Blazers. Look ahead to a little bit of this road trip and talk about what could have been after giving one away against the Sacramento Kings. But first, let me tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar's got deals for y'all. They got Black Friday deals. Built Bar's going all out to make Black Friday weekend the most delicious Black Friday that ever was in the history of Black Fridays. How does that sound for you? They got new limited time flavors, new types of bars, and a winter wonderland deal. You want high-end deliciousness at a discount? All through Black Friday weekend. Get at least 20% off everything at Built.com when you enter the promo code LOCKED20. That's new stuff too, like Ruby chocolate puffs. That's marshmallowy goodness and a unique flavor. That's Ruby chocolate. It's like a rose color, perfect for the holidays, or perfect if you just like a cool pink color. It's like a chocolate flavor that's got kind of a berry taste to it. If you don't want Ruby puffs, what about lemon dipped cheesecake? You probably know what that is. Covered in chocolate, but it's a lemony cheesecake with a little marshmallow puff in there too. Sounds fantastic. Plus, new Built Crave Bar. It is it is their answer to a healthy candy bar. So as opposed to the protein bars that I've always been telling you about, the Built Crave Bar is their answer to those of you who are like, yeah, I'd rather just have a candy bar. Well, how about you grab a Crave Bar? So if you buy any Built box, now through Sunday, you will get 2 of their brand new candy bars, the Built Crave Bar, for free. So 'tis the season to save and to give your taste buds a gift of Built Bar. 20% off Built Bars and 2 free Crave Bars, all at Built.com. Plus, you can get 60% off Built Broth and Built Boost and 40% off Built Swag. That's a lot of deals, y'all. Just enter the code LOCKED20 at Built.com. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locks on Blazers. And we're still bummed that the Blazers lost this game to the Kings. Like I said, regardless, in the first segment, regardless of kind of what's on the horizon, the Blazers need to win this game because you're playing a bad team on the road. They're 1-8 on the road. Their one win is against the lowly Houston Rockets. This was a game to sort of get, move yourself up in the standings, or at least maintain your spot in the crowded Western Conference. 4 through 10 in the West is packed, right? Like everybody's in there. The Kings aren't even really, the Kings are a mess, and they're not even too far away from being in that 4 through 10 range. There's a bunch of kind of same skilled meh teams, and the Blazers had a chance to kind of keep pushing to the upper echelon of the meh, but instead they just looked meh again. Kind of looked like that word, that little MEH for you. So regardless, this is a bad loss because you want to beat a good team. But it's a worse loss when you know what's next. The Blazers have Thanksgiving off. They're going to head on down to San Francisco, taking a bus, I believe, team bus to San Francisco. Take a team bus to San Francisco, they'll get together as a team. Chauncey Billups says they'll get together and do like a team catered Thanksgiving thing for the guys, so everyone has a chance to get together and be thankful. They'll have Thursday off. It's Wednesday right now. Thanksgiving Day off, and then they play Friday at Golden State in San Francisco. And here's the bad news. The Kings are bad, and the Blazers found a way to give up 125 to them. The Warriors are the best team in the league. They're just straight up the best team in the league. They're best team in the league by like a pretty good margin right now. They're 16-2. They just beat the snot out of Philly. Philly doesn't have all their parts, but they're really good. And that doubles down on how bad this loss was, because you go into Golden State, you go into Chase Center or whatever on Friday night and you win. That's just an incredible win, but it could have been a stacked win. And you're more likely to lose because the Warriors are just so damn good. They just beat everyone with a 9-minute stretch in the third quarter. It's kind of their formula back when they were a 73-win team. They just tried to win every game in 8 minutes in the third. They're back to doing that, and they're good enough to do it. It's not a Nurk night. They play super small. It's a tough night for them. Jason Quick was on the program yesterday's show. It's still waiting in your feed. We talked about a bunch of stuff, so still, if you missed it, a really good one to listen to. But he mentioned that he wanted to see Nurk against a small ball team to see if Nurk could take advantage. I have limited faith in that. It's just a tough matchup for him. They play so fast, and they really punish you if you can't cover in space. And Draymond Green's strong as hell, so it's hard to post up. Like, if you're going to just try to take advantage of that, of that size. So Golden State's brutal. That looks and feels like a loss. And then Monday night, after a couple days off, Blazers, I think, spending 4 days in San Francisco around Thanksgiving. So if you're down there, PDX Brochulite, look out for your crew. But Monday evening, they play the Utah Jazz, who have been actually started 4-0 at home and have lost 3 of 4 down there at I was going to call it the Salt Palace, but that building hasn't existed in a long time. At Vivint Smart Home Arena, I believe, is the corporate name of that building in downtown Salt Lake City. Again, one of the good teams in the end of a 3-game roadie. And then that's the first night of a back-to-back. It doesn't get easier, and they got a jam-packed week after this. This was a bad loss because of what's on the horizon, because of 2 very tough games that are believable losses. And they look, the way the Blazers play on the road, those feel like losses. So when you're kind of just chalking it up, you say, well, we're probably not going to beat Golden State. Okay, well, it's going to be tough to beat Utah. Got to get Sac. And that's what makes this tough. So it makes this one so brutal. You not only spoil 28, 17, and 5 from Nurk on 12 of 17 shooting, but you set yourself up to be facing a 3-game losing streak and drop to 1-11 to start your first 12 home games. You're relatively deep into the season to be sitting on 1 road win and not looking like you're going to get another one until December. This was a bad loss because if you're a good team, you got to beat bad teams on the road. The path to 50 wins is you go 30-11 at home and you win 20 of 21 road games. Slightly below 500 on the road, 30-11 at home. That's a 50-win team. That is the math. That's a Terry Stotts thing. I stole it from him. Thank you, Terry. The Blazers basically just don't have the formula to be pushing up towards a 50-win team because they can't get wins on the road. And you just don't count, most teams are better at home, right? That's normal. So you just don't count on going into Golden State and winning. You don't count on going into Salt Lake City and beating the Jazz. You don't count on those happening. You count on going to Sacramento and beating a bad Kings team, and they didn't do it. I'm not someone who's condemning them. I'm not a shake my fist guy, although I have kind of been shaking my fist during this episode, if you're watching on YouTube, but some of me says it happens. And they're right there. And there's just a bunch of mediocre teams in the middle of the Western Conference. The Blazers will be fine and find themselves there. And I think I believe that in my heart. I think I really do. I think they will be fine. But this is relative to my expectations. I think this team is a first round playoff team, right? And if you were hoping for more, they just haven't shown you the hope for more, because every time they seem to get a little momentum, they have to leave the state of Oregon. And when they do that and they get on a plane, they are not good. And they weren't good tonight in Sacramento, which puts them up against 2 really good teams to close out this road trip. Dang. That's the best I got for you. Dang. I would have liked this to be the Jusuf Nurkic podcast. It wasn't. That is going to do it for today's show. I want to say thank you, dear listeners. Here in the US, I know we have a bunch of international listeners, but here in the United States, many of us celebrate Thanksgiving today as you're listening to this show on Wednesday, November 25th. If you are someone who celebrates Thanksgiving, then let's take a moment to be sort of thankful for the community we have here at Locked On Blazers. If you're not someone who celebrates Thanksgiving, either someone who lives in the United States and just doesn't celebrate it for whatever of your preferences, or you live outside the U.S. and you don't understand our weird turkey holiday, it has kind of dicey roots maybe, and a false origin story, but like it's I think at its core, Thanksgiving is a decent holiday, right? Like it's reminding us to be thankful of the people and the things that bring us joy. The thankful of, to say out loud that we are thankful for the people and the things in our lives that we otherwise take for granted, or we otherwise don't, outwardly say thank you for. So let me say it to you, dear listener. Regardless of what sides you prefer, or whether you think turkey is gross or not. Thanks. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you. I've loved growing this community. I've loved watching it grow. I love interacting with you all on Twitter and via the email. It's one of the things that really brings me joy in my life. So thank you so much. I'm really, really, truly appreciative of it. If you haven't subscribed to the show on YouTube, tell your friends about this podcast. Podcasts grow by word of mouth. The way you can help me is just tell a friend who likes the Trailblazers that this is a podcast you like and that they should listen to it. You can tell them that it's available wherever they got podcasts and also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Blazers. We will be right there waiting for them. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.